Hi, everyone, and welcome to tonight's lounge. How are you guys doing on this lovely, oh my God, you guys are way too close to me right now on this. I'm like, you're seeing me really too close, not like you normally see me. How is your Friday night going? We are in the midst of our holiday season, right? Like, I think of our holiday season, November, December, and January. So whatever holiday that you guys are celebrating right now or just got over celebrating, we are still in the holiday season. We don't just celebrate it one day. We celebrate it for weeks and weeks. And then we're going into 2022 with the new regime, the new portal. We're opening, we're expanding, and we're in a place, I believe, from all the turbulence we experienced in 2021 to really manifest, to really take our lives up a level. And we've purged enough over the past year so we can finally break that proverbial ceiling and manifest not only what we've been manifesting, but to take that up a level and really manifest our dream life, whether that's your health, relationships, career, dream transition, whatever it is. And in order to transition, sometimes we have to go back into the past. And sometimes the past just doesn't involve this lifetime. It involves our soul at a very, very, very deep level. So I just want to say hello to some of you tonight that are coming in. Feel free to comment. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to give us your experience of what, because this is going to be such an amazing show tonight. I can't wait. This is a topic that is in my field, but it's something that I don't know anything about. It's something that I love to hear interviews on topics that I don't know anything about, because I learn as we go along, just like you guys are learning. And I find this topic extremely fascinating, as well as our guest. I find her extremely fascinating as well. So I just want to say hi to a few people before we get started. Hi, Amy, everybody on Facebook and YouTube. We have all of you coming in on one time. And Nober, we have Mike, we have our regulars coming in. Ellen, how are you doing? Eileen, Kathleen, good to see you guys. And we have some new people too. Hi from Belgium. How you guys doing? And we have some people from Wisconsin. That's kind of strange. And Kelly, how are you doing tonight? It's your first time. Great to see you. And I would love to have you guys just interact for the whole show and let us know what you're thinking. And let us know if you know about your soul records. Okay, so let me just get into what we're going to be talking about tonight. It's going to be the Akashic Records. Interesting. Have you guys ever heard about the Akashic Records? Well, this is something very, very deep in our soul contract. And apparently there's people out there that can actually access our soul records and read them and be able to implement them into our lives and the choices we make as we go along. So I'm just going to tell you guys about a little bit about our guests coming up, because I can't wait to get into the questions, because I know I'm going to have a lot of questions. I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions, so I cannot wait. Let's talk about our guest. Welcome to the lounge. Give her a warm welcome. Say hi to Amy Gray-Cunningham. She is an intuitive healer and an Akashic Records practitioner. She helps people understand who they are at a soul level to begin living the life God and our souls intended us to live. She believes we are the creators of our own experiences. Therefore, we manifest the life we deserve. And I'm not going to get into her story. She's going to get into her story. So give a warm welcome to the lounge to Amy Gray-Cunningham. How are you, Amy?
Hey, how are you? I'm wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for having me on tonight.
Absolutely. How is your holiday season going?
fabulous. Absolutely
Awesome.
fabulous.
Great.
So, yeah.
And where are you at in the country? Are you on the West Coast?
I am on the East Coast.
Oh,
I am in Charlotte, North Carolina.
oh my God. How is North Carolina? How is living in North Carolina?
Oh, I love it. It's starting to get cold, but for me, that's relative. So
Yes, yes. You're enjoying the cold weather a little bit more than the humid hot weather.
yes, yes. For some people, 60s are really, really warm, but for me,
Yeah.
it's cold. I like
Okay.
70s, 80s, but yeah.
Well, good. So
No.
I'm just gonna dive right in because I find this topic so fascinating. And I want to know what I mean. Obviously, you probably had stuff you did before you got into, reading the Akashic records or doing your intuitive healing. Um, what was like your previous life about? Like, what were you doing in your previous intuitive life, professional intuitive life? What was your job? Tell me a little bit about you before you had this experience that took you into this type of work.
Well, I've always done marketing for my real day job, I guess you could say. I've done marketing, and so I'm the creative. I like to create, and that is that's what brings my money in, I guess you could say. But before that, in my other lifetime, I was one of those people who kind of philandered around, didn't really know where my footing was. Growing up, I was one of those kids that didn't have really a purpose, I guess you
Oh,
could say. I never quite knew where I fit in. I never felt like I had a home. And so it was just really uncomfortable for me as a kid growing up, and uncomfortable in my own skin.
yeah.
And it took a long time for me to get to the point to where I really truly enjoyed being me. And it wasn't until my son was born that I started to actually believe in a spiritual something other, that there was something else out there. And so I started pursuing it.
So, what about your son being born made you
He was
believe in something more? I mean, what was that
he was my
moment?
miracle. He was my miracle, especially when I was sitting there holding this little baby. Well, he wasn't little. He was 9'5". He was a big boy. But when I was sitting there holding this little guy, and I'm like, oh my Lord, I did this, I created this, Wow. Now what do I do with them?
Right. So you weren't spiritual before that, or really weren't involved in this type of world?
I can remember trying to understand the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that didn't work out very well. I just never really got it, and then I've told people and wrote in my book that it was, if God handed out the book of life, I was skipping school that day because I just never got it. I never understood what it was. So, and I remember when being little, I would have um, uh, invisible friends, I guess you could
Imaginary friends, yeah.
say, friends. And so at that time, when I was really young, I believed in spirits and I believed in angels. And but I grew, I guess, as they say, I put away childish things.
Yeah, so would you say you had an agnostic period where you didn't know what your beliefs were, and then you did have an experience, right, that kind of changed everything for you.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. This was about almost 11 years ago now. Yeah, right about 11 years ago. I was standing in the kitchen and I was cleaning up after dinner, and my husband was on Facebook, and he was telling me the story of David Ensley, and he was dying. He needed a kidney transplant, and his sister had posted a story on Facebook asking for a kidney donor. And I didn't even know that that was something that you could do. And literally, I heard a voice tell me that I would be the one to donate a kidney to him.
What?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
I was standing in the kitchen and I heard this voice say that I would be the one to donate the kidney and I would be a perfect match. And I was like, okay, that had never happened to me before. And it was just like instantaneous. I knew without a shadow of a doubt, like my name was
Wow.
Amy Gray-Cunningham, that I would be the one to donate. And I just kind of like looked around like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Right.
And I was 6 months later. I was being wheeled into surgery, and I ended up being a 1 in 20 million match. I should have literally been this guy's brother or sister. He
So
should
there
have
must
been.
there must have been some sort of like soul contract there, right? Would you think?
Oh yes,
Right.
without a doubt. That's definitely. I honestly think that was definitely a soul contract.
So you went into surgery, you did this thing, and did that kind of open your did that kind of open you up spiritually? Did you have a spiritual experience during that process?
Yes. And I had started a spiritual process after my son was born. And I had started praying, which led to more of a meditation, which led to kind of an opening. I started reading books, but not quite, I was dabbling, I
Yeah.
guess you could say. And I had heard other voices tell me to do different things, but that was one of the biggest, obviously the biggest thing that I'd ever heard, give a body part away was a pretty
Yeah,
big,
that's
a
I mean
pretty big ask.
for not knowing like what you believed in spiritually, not knowing if anything was out there because no burning bush, like God wasn't coming in front of the burning bush. You're like,
That
what
was
is
pretty much
out
my
there?
burning bush. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was pretty
I
much my
think
burning bush.
that's a big deal. And I mean, I always wanted to ask somebody this, and since you're here, I might as well. But what was that moment like when you guys met, like after the surgery and this happened? Like, was there this emotional exchange? Like, how did he feel? Like, what did he say to you? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, that must have been a moment.
There is a picture of me floating around the internet somewhere of me going to his room. And my husband, I told him, I said, will you please, because the one thing I forgot to bring to the hospital with me was a bathrobe, and the only thing they give you is that little thing that, with the back opens
Yeah.
up for everything in the world to see. So I was like,
Yeah.
bring me a bathrobe, and I had a really nice purple one in the bathroom, and I had this old raggedy plaid green one. And he brought me the old raggedy plaid green one.
That's great.
I'm like, honey, why did you bring me this? And he's like, oh, well, you wear it all the time. Yes, I do. And he's like, well, I figured you liked this one. I'm like, yes, but the really pretty purple one was right next to it. So I ended up, there's a picture of me with this ugly green plaid bathrobe on. And I was standing there with David. He was laying in the bed and I'm crying. And it was just emotional. It was very an emotional picture. But the next time I saw him, I'm walking down the hallway with my 80-year-old father-in-law beside me, trying to hold me up, walking, and David is running down the hall, literally running. He felt so good and so alive and it was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
Is that the only time you guys connected, or do you guys keep in touch, or?
Oh yeah. I keep in touch with him
Okay.
now.
He's doing well.
Oh yeah, he's doing well. Him and his wife are still married. They were high school sweethearts. So, it'll be 11. It's been let's see, it was in June. So 10 and a half years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so is there a link between that experience and what brought you to your work with helping people to read their soul contracts?
Well, I believe that I am a physical healer because literally I gave a body part away, which actually healed another person and a family for that matter.
Yeah.
Brought
God.
joy and life to a family. They were going to lose a brother and a father and a husband and a son. And that is not the case now. He's been around for 10 years, and now he's a grandfather too.
Oh,
On top of that, and
I like don't want to cry on the show right now, but like I'm so moved. And yeah, that's just, it's so moving.
It was a moving experience for me,
Yeah.
anyway. And now there's so many people who have donated their kidneys, and then you can donate blood, and you can donate bone marrow, and there's just so many ways to help people physically survive and live. It's just amazing what you can do with your bodies.
Yeah.
Now, so yes, I'm a very big advocate for living donation. But that led me to, it opened up my spiritual, my intuitive abilities, my spiritual. I wanted to understand more, and I kept asking God, okay, I want to know more. I want to know more. Why I always ask why.
Yeah.
and I want to know more. And why is this? And I'm always asking for my perception, my perspective to be changed. How can I see things differently? And it's like kind of like peeling back a layer of an onion. Every time I ask that question, another layer gets pulled back, and another layer gets pulled back, and I go a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And a lot of my beliefs have been challenged, because I grew up in a fairly Catholic background. I didn't necessarily believe that God loved me, because I couldn't understand why all these bad things happened to me if he loved me.
Right. Exactly.
So, I thought I was a good girl, but obviously, if all these things happened, why did God allow them? And so I never understood. I just didn't understand.
So you have trauma from your past. You're a trauma survivor as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't understand.
Yeah.
And I couldn't fathom how a God who was all loving, all knowing, could allow a child to go through so much pain. And how he could allow so much negative, hurt to happen to one person, or to anybody for that matter.
Right.
And I couldn't understand. I didn't understand sin. I didn't understand going to hell. I didn't understand, well, if this person is my friend and I believe that he's a loving person, why he's going to hell if he likes another boy. I could not wrap my brain around.
Right.
And I couldn't understand why people told me I had to believe something just because I was told it was the way it was supposed to be.
Right.
And when I would ask why, I was shunned.
Right.
Well, just because. And I was told
the way it is.
To believe it.
Yeah.
And I just didn't. And so because I didn't get it, and I still had questions, I thought that there was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
So I kept asking God, and he kept showing me. And he kept revealing more and more and more. And I started getting into angels and understanding what angels were all about, and relying on angels and guides, and being a part of. And then I would hear my guide Jonathan. He would start speaking in my ear, and I'm like, who is this guy? And you're literally hearing voices, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm having some sort of schizophrenic episode or something. And
so can I just jump in real quick and ask you something? And it's a deep question. And if you don't feel comfortable answering it, you do not have to. But did you ever get that answer from your soul work? Like, why did God let this happen to me? And what's the lesson? Did you ever actually get resolve about that?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Or you don't have to in detail, but like, how did you, the reason why I'm asking is because a lot of people in our audience probably have the same story, or the same similar things have happened. We have a lot of people that have dealt with a lot of dysfunctional family upbringings and trauma, like all that kind of stuff, and trying to heal that. So how did you figure that out, and how did you get that resolved?
Oh, that is a really good question. Really good question. A lot of layers coming back on that onion,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding who I am at soul level, and understanding that I had things that needed to be healed. And the only way for that to be healed was for me to go through those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that we are the creators of our own experience, and that we create a lot of what goes on in our lives. And I know that sounds weird for me to say that, especially for
Yeah.
a child.
Right, because you couldn't control what happened to you.
However, I believe that when we incarnate into this soul world, we come in with certain contracts. We come in with certain karma from past lives that need to be resolved and worked through. And so we make agreements with other souls. You know, I could have made an agreement with you before we came into this lifetime that we were going to meet on a certain day at a certain time and have this conversation. Who knows? And we make agreements with people to work through issues. And I may have made agreements on a soul level with these men in my life who have caused harm to me, that to help them work through whatever karmic issues they needed to work through as well.
Did they ever work through them?
I have no idea. I
Yeah.
won't know probably until I see them.
Do
Who knows?
you feel like you have forgiveness for them?
Oh, yes. And it's
Really?
because I forgive myself.
Right.
Because I realize that I'm here experiencing myself as a divine being.
Mm-hmm.
And when I forgive, there's really nothing to forgive, because I'm here to experience and to release the anger, the it didn't really actually it's hard to explain. It never actually really happened, other than the experience of allowing everything to just be released. The anger, the fear, the resentment, that was
Yes.
all stuff that my personality, my ego has held on to.
Right. So you had like a big bag of rocks on top, like you were carrying a burden,
Yes.
shame and guilt and the burden. And so you felt maybe like you were able to free yourself
Yes.
from that prison that you had the key, but you just couldn't, even though somebody opened the door, you couldn't get out.
Yes.
Even though they said the door's open, you can get out of this. Yeah. So
There's the key. Walk through. How do you do that? How do you do
right.
that? It's it. I'm here to experience all of the wonders and the joys of being in the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
And with that comes shame, guilt, hurt, fear, joy, happiness, pain, loss, grief.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the myriad of emotions that go with it. But I am not those emotions. I am the soul experiencing those emotions.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I can look at it that way, from that perspective, I can free those people from those perceived injustices that they did to me, and allow them their experience of what they did. They have to go through what they have to go through.
Right. And so in a sense, by holding on to it and it continuing to harm you, they're still harming you.
Yeah.
By you holding on to it and still controlling, you not to have living a full life and being numb and dissociated and all the things that happen when that's concerned. So
my father was an alcoholic growing up.
Yeah.
He was hardly ever around. And our relationship is very dysfunctional, extremely dysfunctional.
Yeah.
He is one of my greatest teachers. And now that he's in the spirit world, he's one of my guides. And he experiences this life with me and through me. And he helps me now. And he's such a wonderful soul. But he went through the life that he went through.
Mm-hmm.
in such a loving way to be able to teach me unconditional love and to help me go through the pain of letting him be him, to allow me the freedom of loving him just the way he is now. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, because with any child that is exposed to an alcoholic household, there's always that fantasy of, there's two dads, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, right? So there's always that fantasy that the good dad is going to prevail and the hero is going to prevail and he's going to be that way. Finally, he's going to get better. He's going to stop drinking and he's going to be the hero dad. And people hold on to that till they're 80 years old. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
And there's two different people and some people keep them separated like most of their life. Where they're like, oh, here's the bad one and here's the good one. And, maybe you've integrated him into just who he is.
Well, he's just another soul. And he had a rough childhood growing up.
Yeah.
He had an alcoholic dad and an alcoholic mom, and he was abused as a child, and he grew up in a really rough home. And I didn't know that growing up. He was just dad. And I couldn't understand why he did the things he did and why he wasn't around and why he said he was going to do something and he never did. And as a child looking at him, I felt responsible. I took it upon myself. But now as an adult, looking back on it and understanding where he came from, I can help that little girl in me to heal by, holding on to her, saying, you're okay, you're loved, and just allowing the forgiveness to just embrace the entire image and enfold both of us, all, his little boy, his little child, his soul, because we're all just souls having this human experience. And there's really nothing to forgive at the end of the day, except for the perception that I had about the situation that caused the resentment.
Right, exactly. And did your dad ever get sober in his life?
He did. He ended up passing away from bladder cancer. Almost 18 years ago now. And I still hear him, and he comes and sees me every now and then. And
did you guys make a physical amends in this life where you were able to?
We were able to, yeah.
That's great.
Yes.
A lot of people don't get that opportunity. You got that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I don't know if my brother and sister ever really did. But my dad and I always had kind of a unique relationship, and he always knew where to find me, or I was always the one that bridged the gap, I guess.
Yeah.
And helped him to heal towards the end. And that's why I always say he's one of my greatest teachers. He really is.
That's awesome. And I'm sure you're getting connections from him in spirit with the work that you do. And you've had visitations. And I mean, I didn't expect to go into this whole line of things. But let's get to your work. I mean, people want to know, tell me what are the Akashic Records? Tell me give me the basics so that people who have no idea what this is, tell me what they are.
The Akashic Records are their energy. And they are literally the book of life. If you have heard in the Bible about God having the book of life, there really is a book of life. And it's all about everything you've ever thought, done, said, did in every lifetime is held in this Akashic Records. Some people think of it as a library. It's not really a place as much as it's everywhere, all at the same time. It's... I call it the information superhighway for the soul. I kind of see it as like you go to a computer and you type in a question and Google bings you back an answer.
Okay.
pretty much the exact same thing. I go to a computer, I type in a question, and it bings me back an answer. People go into the Akashic Records every night. When you go to sleep, your soul actually goes into the records. It does a download of the day's events. You do a brain dump. Everything goes into the records. You have a guardian over your records. Nobody can access your records except for you unless you give them permission.
How do you know these things? Were you taken on a journey in a dream state, or how do you know all these details about the Akashic Records? Like, seriously, how do you know this?
Well, I've lived in the records. I actually mentored with a lady. Her name is Andrea Hess.
Yeah, okay.
And she received information through the records as well. And she created this program that or modality that I learned. And, just by going into the records on a daily basis for myself, there's just things that you learn because the records are all knowing and all encompassing. And you work with guides in the records. And it's really kind of cool. If you're an intuitive, you go into the records. If you're do Reiki, you go into the records. When you're a massage therapist you go into the records without actually even knowing that you're probably even in the records.
So when I'm doing like an intuitive session for a client and I'm looking sort of what I see is kind of like their life map.
Yeah.
And then I see different pathways that they could choose, one being at a lower frequency, one being at a higher frequency, kind of like in a choose your own adventure book. Because I don't believe in I believe we hit destiny points, but I don't believe that every single, that there's a prediction just about love or a prediction just about this. I believe that they can give me options. I could say, okay, these are the roads. These are the highways you're going to go on. These are the exits you're going to go off. And this is who you're going to meet along the way. So you're saying that I'm seeing the records, or is this a total, or am I just tapping into the universe? They're the records.
Mm-hmm. You're in the records.
So what you're doing is not any different than what I'm doing?
Not at all. You are in the records. It is all the same thing. And actually, the way I explain the records is, you're in the forest. You're at ground level, and you've got this issue or a problem come up, and you're not sure which way to go. And you see, path A, path B, path C.
Yep.
You've got all these different paths, but you can't see what's past the first three or four trees because of the forest. There's so great, there's so much brush that you can't see down each pathway. And you're like, oh my God, which way do I go? And that's where the indecision stuff comes into play.
Right.
And so in the records, what happens is your guides just lift you up out of the forest, and you can see all the different pathways. They all lead out of the forest. One pathway may be shorter than the other pathway. One pathway may take you up a hill or down a hill.
That's right.
One may take you over a volcano. One may, you know what I mean? There's so many different pathways. They all lead out of the forest, though. Eventually, you're going to make it. But it's up to you which one you want to choose based off of what experience you want to have.
Right.
And the records basically tell you, okay, well, you can go down path A and experience joy, peace, and happiness. Or you can go down path B and experience, maybe a little bit of a rough patch here. Or, you know what, you could possibly, get rid of this karmic debt because you're going to experience blah, 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 blah.
Exactly.
What
about people who cycle constantly in one life area? Like they break up with one guy, they go to the next guy. It's the same thing. Then and they keep thinking, I want to get out of this cycle. I want to get out of this cycle. But I can't tell you how many times people come to me for a session. I'm like, this is your path if you choose this. This is your path if you choose that. Here are the destiny points you're going to hit. But I know you're not going to listen to me. They laugh and they say, Marisa, you're right. It would be easier if I went down this path, but I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, okay. So how do people, what is this cycle in the Akashic Records called? What are they in? How do they get out of it?
Karmic debt.
That's karmic debt. So
how exactly it is. It's like what I call it is when people come to me, the first thing I ask them for is an intention that they want, something they want to create physically manifest within the next 3 to 6 months. It has to be something tangible. Like I want to lose weight. I want to lose 50 pounds within the next 6 months. I want to manifest $50,000 within the next 6 months. I want to manifest a man that's tall, dark, and handsome that makes blah, 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 blah amount of money. I mean, literally, it's got to be.
It's that specific?
That specific. It's got to be tangible. And it's got to be.
And these are like guaranteed to happen, these things.
Well, no. Well,
yeah.
It's got to be It's got to be tangible. Let's put it that way.
Like reasonable.
Reasonable.
Reasonable, like goal. You can't be like, I want to make $50 million in a month. Like,
I mean,
you could.
You could. If
Yeah,
that
you
really,
could.
I mean, it just really depends. I mean, there's actually a formula for all of that on exactly what you can and can't manifest, because there's just so much room for elasticity when it comes to manifesting. If you're at this point and you want to get to this point, it really depends on how far away that point is to where because you can only start where you're at.
What about like a lottery winner? They go from like rags to riches, or, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that's really kind of interesting, because sometimes I believe that that's actually been in their records.
Right. That's at a destiny point. That's a destiny point.
And it's a contract that they're supposed to win this amount of money and experience X, Y, and Z as a result of this particular choice, because they actually had to make a choice to go out and buy that lottery ticket.
Yeah, of course. And it had to be,
they had to take the action to actually go out and buy this lottery ticket. If they didn't buy the lottery ticket, they wouldn't have won the money. You know, so there's got to be an action that has to come first. So anyway.
So like what type, like if people come to you for a session, because you do these readings,
mm-hmm.
Can you tell me, like, if someone sits down with you, what they're going to experience?
Well, like I said, they have to give me an intention. And then basically, because there is no time in the records, because the records are held in the fifth dimension. And in the fifth dimension, there is no time. There's no past, present, or future. That happens in the third and fourth dimensions. I mean, the third dimension is right here, right now. Fourth dimension is where you have past, present, and future. You can time travel in the fourth dimension. The fifth dimension, there is no time. Mm-hmm. So everything's happening right now. And, you know, like 20 lifetimes ago is actually happening right now. So there's no time. So I can actually see how God created your soul to manifest, how he created your soul to manifest based off of your unique divine soul blueprint back when it was first created. When he first breathed life into your soul. And so from there, you go into lifetimes, you take action, you either take action that is in alignment with who you are at soul level or not in alignment with who you are at soul level.
Okay.
And you either start creating positive karmic patterns or negative karmic patterns.
Mm-hmm.
When you create negative karmic patterns, it creates a kink in your energy flow system. This is how we receive vital force energy from God. And the way I explain it is kind of like a water hose. You know, when there's good positive karmic energy flowing through, the water just flows, and it's everything is just going nice and smooth. And then if you make a decision that goes against who you are at soul level, it gets a kink. So the water doesn't flow as easily.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you make you start making that same choice over and over and over again, it starts to curl up and it starts to bend and it starts to, you know, the water just gets a little slower and a little slower and a little slower. And then finally, it just doesn't really, you know, come out. It starts dribbling down and you start feeling sluggish and you start feeling not so hot and you start making really bad decisions and you start making the same decisions over and over again. And then you're like, why do I keep beating my head up against the wall? I don't understand. Why am I making the same poor decisions with picking the wrong guys? And I just don't, you know, understand why I'm doing this. Well, it's probably, you know, a decision you made 10, 15, 20 lifetimes ago. Still trying to work through and overcome, because that's why we incarnate. To work through and overcome and experience ourselves. It's all about the experience. And it's all about understanding who we are at soul level and having that experience. And then once we are aware of why we're making those choices and the kink is removed because I help to clear those negative karmic patterns and allow the vital force energy to flow through, then you're able to make positive karmic choices, because you can see once you're aware of something and you can see why you're doing what you're doing and it makes sense, then you can start making different choices. And when you start making different choices based off of who you are at soul level, things just start rolling and manifesting, and it just starts happening for you, and things start showing up, and it's just amazing. And you start creating the life that you want to be living, and
Right.
what you're here to do. And it's just flows. It's just amazing. It's so cool.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. So if somebody comes and sits down with you, they tell you they want what they want to manifest, and then do they give you situations in their life that they want to ask about, or do you just go into looking at the record and just whatever comes up, you tell them? Like, how does it go after they tell you what do you do after that?
Well, I'm able to, the first part of the session, I'm able to tell them how God created them to manifest. I tell them, whether they're, oh, are they more of someone who needs to be speaking their truth more? Do they need to be more of someone who is a writer or a speaker, or do they need to be someone who's more of a healer? Maybe they're meant to be more of a doctor or a nurse or a practitioner or something along those lines. Maybe they were created to be a teacher. Maybe they were, so it depends on what kind of attributes they have. And I can tell them, and usually they're like, oh my God, that's so me. You're right. Yes, I can see that. Most of the time. Sometimes they're like, I don't really see that. And it's probably because they haven't been living who they are at soul level. So I tell them, I'm like, you know what, just try it on. See if it works. If it works for you and positive things start happening, then you know that it's right. So far, in the past couple of years I've been doing this, I have not had anyone tell me that's absolutely not me. You're totally dead wrong.
Right. So when you're going into this intuitive part, is it like, because you asked for the date of birth time, location, is this via a program that kind of tells you where they are in the spectrum, or like different pieces of the pie, or like what do you do with that birth information? Does that go into a program?
No. That actually gives me access to intuitively access their records, because like I said, the records have a firewall up, and it's one of the best firewalls that Apple or, whatchamacallit, any of the computer people, they can never.
Yeah.
There's no hackers that can get into the Akashic records. You have to have permission.
Right.
And in order, if somebody says that, Marisa, I've accessed your Akashic records and I'm here to tell you that blah, 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 just know that they're lying to you, because there's no one that can get into your records unless you give them permission. So
okay,
just letting you know up front. They can't get in there. Now, if you give me permission and I come to you and say, oh, Marisa, I'm here to tell you, then, you may want to listen. But that's why I asked for, those are the keys for me to be able to access your records.
okay.
It's the vibrational energy of having that information that allows me access into your records.
Okay.
And your guides at that point start to give me the information that I ask for.
Okay.
And
so do people ask you questions or no?
Yeah, they can ask me questions, and I do that when in the reading now. I also go into past lives, and based off of the intention that they give me, that's where the blocks and restrictions come up. And that's how I'm able to tell them, okay, well, 10 lifetimes ago, you were a male and you were, a serial killer that, went on a rampage and, killed 20 people. And that's why you're living this life now of poverty and disgrace. I don't know.
Okay.
just throwing stuff out there.
Yeah.
Or you were 5 lifetimes ago, you were married to, a guy that you didn't want to marry because you were really in love with this other woman, but you couldn't marry her because that went totally against your, upbringing. And so you did something, but you're really, someone who needs to be able to have freedom in your life and be able to make choices and decisions based off of who you are at soul level. And because you weren't able to make those choices for yourself, you felt restricted. And
Yeah.
So there's many layers that go into it, and you're able to see why you're making the choices that you're making now, and why you can't manifest, or you're being stopped from, reaching that 40-pound mark of losing weight,
Right.
or because it's mental is not the word to use. It's a block.
Right. Yeah. So you help people to move past those blocks, unkink that hose. And
Mhm.
so they can finally be in alignment with their soul and kind of go along the lazy river. And
Mhm.
instead of trying to force opportunities to come along, once they're in that flow, once they're in that alignment, the right things will come to them.
Yes, the universe
That's
it flows.
just, and how long are your sessions, and what is it? Zoom? Is it phone? Like how does it work?
I do Zoom meetings. I say they last about an hour, hour and a half, depending on how many questions you may have.
Okay.
Sometimes it may last a little bit longer. Like I said, it just really depends on the questions and how deep we get into it. But usually it's about an hour, hour and a half.
Awesome. Well, I want to put up your website here, so people can. Did I spell that right?
Yep.
Amy Gray. Okay. So if you guys want to connect with Amy, and she's also offering a little special, like all of our guests offer, so they get exciting. AmyGray-Cunningham.com, and all your socials are Amy Gray-Cunningham. So if you go on Twitter, you go on Instagram, you go on Facebook, it's Amy Gray-Cunningham. So it's not all different ones. So you don't have to be confused. You want to connect with her on social. YouTube, it would just be too long of a, people won't remember that.
Yeah.
So everything.
You can still Google Amy Gray-Cunningham and it'll
Yeah.
take you there.
So she's got everything, every social you could imagine she's on. Just Google Amy Gray-Cunningham. Just follow her on a couple socials, and I'm sure she'll have the links to her other socials as well. And now she is offering, which is kind of cool. I'm going to post this on the banner. Just give me a second. Let's see if they mention they heard me on the lounge. I'm just going to put this in here real quick.
Hashtag the lounge.
Okay. If they mention they heard me on the lounge, I will give them a 10% discount on a soul realignment reading. So that's with Amy Gray-Cunningham. And this is for the Akashic Records and Soul Alignment reading.
Mhm.
And you guys could get in touch with her by going to Amy Gray-Cunningham on every social channel and to her website, Amy Gray-Cunningham. I so enjoyed having you tonight, Amy. I spent a half hour going into your history instead of going into the Akashic Records. Is there anything else you'd like our audience to know about, or anything we missed on hitting any points that you'd like to get into before we wrap the show up tonight?
Well, I know 2021 has been a heck of a year for me as well. So here's to 2022 and having an amazing manifesting kick butt year.
Yes.
Like I said, the Akashic Records are awesome. And I have had an amazing time being able to go into it and help others manifest their dreams. So it works for me. Hopefully it'll work for other people as well.
Well, you have such an amazing story, and it's just sharing your story of hope. I believe is going to be an inspiration to anybody who's watching this tonight. And feel free, like I said, to comment. Usually we get everybody interactive stuff, but we had a lot to talk about tonight. So comment in the comment section, and we will get back to you. Either I will get back to you, or Amy will get back to you. If it's not in real time, we'll get back to you after the show is finished airing, and answer your comments or questions. And like I said, if you want to connect with Amy, please go to her website. She's an intuitive healing practitioner and an Akashic Records practitioner. So connect with her on her website. And again, if you mention you heard Amy on the lounge, she'll give you a 10% discount on a soul realignment reading, which sounds really enticing. And Amy, I really enjoy talking to you. I think you're have such an amazing story of hope, and man, the story that how you had that intuition to do that amazing work, that soul work that you did for that other human being was just really incredible.
Thank you.
And it's just amazing that you're doing this work to help others transition and to break their patterns and to get back to their spirit and their soul and get on the path that they're of ease.
That is, it's all about love.
Yeah.
All about love. So
yes. So
enjoy.
thank you. Thank you so
Enjoy.
much.
You're
Yes.
welcome. Thank you.
I appreciate you having us. I hope you enjoyed being on the lounge, and
I did.
we'll see you another time, I'm sure.
Definitely. I appreciate
Okay.
it. Thank you.
All right. See you guys later. You guys have an amazing weekend.